Morning and welcome back. So today's the day I'm going to be fitting the twin 40s to the Sunbeam Sport here just behind me, you can just about see, and my carburetors, which are just here, all set up ready to go, and just need to do a few mods. So obviously first port of call is to get the manifold off. So before I do that, I'm going to jack the car up, and then we'll attempt to fit these monsters on. I'll have to check them first, make sure the exhaust fits, because I bought this clamp that Swiggly Tube Andy recommended, called a V clamp or something, and this section welds onto the exhaust manifold, and the other section welds onto your exhaust, and then there's this 10mm nut here. You unscrew the clamp opens up, and then it clamps the two pieces together and holds the exhaust. So it's a bit better, hopefully, than the U-bolt, which squashes the pipe, and it's a right nightmare to get off, as you'll all have experienced, and then they rust, and then they're even harder to get off. These are stainless steel, two separate discs. I'll take it apart so you can see. So they're a face fit, so you get two halves, and they fit like that together. And then the clamps, look a bit of sealer, I would have thought, maybe not, because they're face fit, flush. Bolt them together, clamp them on. When you take it off, you undo the clamp, exhaust falls apart, back together again. So it should be a lot easier of a job than squashing the exhaust, which is what a U-bolt tends to do. And then you put the clamp back round like this, just tighten the nut up, and you clamp it as tight as it needs to go till it grips it, and then jobs are good. So that's my job. Got my manifold gasket like I showed last week. I've handed it. I've got the carbs. So it's all guns are blazing. So I'll firstly start off with jacking the car up, and we'll resume very shortly. So jack the car up now. The most important thing is, when you're working on the jack, is always put an axle stand under, because we don't want the jack failing and somebody getting squashed. So I've jacked it up, and I've got an axle stand under, so it's about 6 inches off the ground. The wheel's off the ground enough for me to get underneath. So now we'll start dismantling all the bits. A few things I've got to do before I modify my exhaust is to make sure that my accelerator cable is going to be long enough to loop round and pick up the linkage I've got on the carbs, which I think it will be, because it's the way it comes through. So that's number one, and then just check the exhaust fitment. So we'll resume back very shortly. Okay, so after a bit of fiddling around, we've managed to get carbs off and the manifold, and there's the twin 40s to go on. I've just offered them up, and I've got a bit of a problem. That piece you can see here is about 7 inches too long, so I've got to cut the whole lot off, probably extend that pipe further back if I've got a bit of pipe, then trim this right back so I can fit my exhaust on, which is under the car over there. There's a problem. While I was at it, I've had a few oil leaks. I had an oil leak on this coming through this stud, so I've redone all that. I forgot about the water hose, because I had the heated inlet manifold on this, so that's been a bit of a pain. I've had to disconnect and re-loop that back in. One thing I've not took into consideration is a breather and the vacuum off the distributor. So I'm going to probably end up having to put another extra connection in the inlet manifold for the vacuum for the breather. And the breather hose, I'll put the flame trap back on and just run it into a bottle into the corner for now, over there. And that should hopefully get me up and running. But more importantly is this blooming manifold. You're going to get about a 10-inch box on it, so it's really not designed for an imp. It needs to be much longer on that section there, because I've got about 5 inches before it hits the drive shaft, so I could extend that 2 or 3 inches, and then I can trim that back, weld my piece onto that, weld my piece onto my exhaust, and jobs are good. But it's a bit more work than I anticipated. So when you're considering swapping to this setup, you need to take into consideration quite a few things, which I unfortunately knew about. The exhaust might need modifying, but not to the extent. But the water pipe work, the vacuum for your distributor, etc, etc. Anyway, we'll move on from there and we'll do a bit of chopping and carving, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, so we've chopped the end off the exhaust, as you can see there, and now I've chopped all the other pieces up, and we're now left with these pieces here. So this is going to go onto that. It fits just nice. To weld that on, take the card presses off, make it a bit easier. This flange will go onto that piece, so I'll tack that on, which will be my clamp, and then somehow I've got to stretch that to fit onto that, which is going to be a bit of a challenge. So I have actually flared these cut these ends here, so I'm hoping I can, once I've got this piece welded onto this, I can squash this a little bit, make it a bit more the same as the next one, squash that in where my fingers are, which should widen it out slightly with a bit of luck, and then I should be able to get that onto there and just flare out the little pieces to the end, so I've got a reasonable flow into it. That would then set me up as per the existing manifold distance, which I'll measure on the carpet, because I've got a line on my tile of my carpet which I'll put the manifold on and put the other one on and line it up. Then I've got to trim my back box back and weld the other half of the ferrule on, which is here, and then fingers crossed it can all go on and be bolted on, and then we'll try for a run. So I'm not going to video this, I might do it in stages, but once I've welded this piece to that on, and then that piece to that on, and then we'll weld it onto the manifold, I'll revert back. Okay, so we've tacked on the ferrule, and it looks a bit of a car crash at the moment, but once I've welded it all up and ground it flush, it'll look a lot better. But at least that fits something like round in my manifold connection. So I'll get that. I've slurred these out, so I'm going to have to fill them a bit with weld, a bit excessive on them ones, I need just dressing, but that will then allow my other section to be fitted on top, which is that bit. So we're not actually a million mile away now with that. By the time we get it welded up and cleaned up, it'll be looking a lot better. Okay, so we've welded that up and got a reasonable weld on it. Just needs a bit of dressing up with the grinder later. Got nice penetration on the inside, so I know it's not going to come apart. So the next bit is going to be welding this onto the manifold. So I've got the manifold in. What I've got to make sure is when I do put this piece on top, it's in line, level, coming off the manifold square. So I make sure that I've not got my exhaust running too high. So that's going to be the next tricky bit. There'll be a tack on bit that bolt the exhaust manifold on, put the exhaust on and see where we're at. And I'll revert back very shortly on that. Okay, so we're now going to start just tacking up this section on, so I thought I'd do a bit of a video on this. So watch your eyes. Nope, that wasn't a very good start. No earth on. Must put the earth on. Okay. So we'll start again. So what we're going to do, because we're going to struggle to get to the inside, we'll weld the inside bridge across and fill a gap, so then we'll have no exhaust gases leaking through. That's all welded up on the inside. I'll get a picture of that in a bit. I'll tidy the outside up with a grinder and we're nearly there now. Okay. It was all welded up. Just a bit of tidying up to do with the grinder, and that's part one complete. So as you can see now, we've got some good get the lights on that. Some good penetration through on that. So we're nearly done. Okay, so we now got the ferrule lined up on the back of the exhaust. It's all to cock, as you can see. But the problem I've got is because the exhaust is that blooming high, I've had to reduce it down and make this match what's on the car. So it doesn't look pretty from above, but once it's underneath, no one will ever see it. Hopefully, apart from the MOT man when I take it. So I'll just have to live with it, I'm afraid, but at least it fits. Otherwise it means chopping and carving the whole blooming exhaust, which I've got now on the car underneath. Just zoom up, go the right way up, Bill. So there's the manifold, and I've just had to trim my heat shield out to miss it, but we're all done and dusted now. So I'm just going to weld this up on the exhaust, take the manifold off, weld the other bits up, grind it all up, and then carbs back on and bolt it on, and fingers crossed we'll be ready for a start in about an hour. Okay, so we're now finally done with the exhaust. I've ground it all up nice and clean, best I can. I've also put my vacuum connections on, 2 for the servo and 1 for the vacuum on the distributor, and that's it all inside, all cleaned up. It should have no problems there. Lovely that now. That's that done. I'm going to put a bit of paint on it. Done my exhaust is all cleaned up. That just needs a bit of paint on it. And then we'll be back to fitting this in this car this afternoon. Okay, so now this is the exhaust all fully painted. For some reason my microphone wasn't working in the garage. You need to look at that. So anyway, that's ready and painted and ready to go onto the car. I've painted the exhaust back box just down there, and like I say, I'll let it dry off. I'm going to go and have a bit of lunch, and then after lunch we'll come back, put the carburetors back on the manifold and reassemble it. Okay, so it's now time for an update. We've got all the carbs on, got my accelerator cable connected, got my vacuum hoses. What a nightmare. I made a right cock up down there with them, but they're on. I just need to make a bracket for this vacuum hose. I've had to change my fuel line because it wasn't long enough, and I've had a right job with the vacuum off the as you can see there, for the distributor. So I've had to find this bit of hose. I don't know if it's suitable or not, but it's for my welding set, because when I welded the spigot on down there, you can see it's right close to the blooming bolt, and now I've made a right cock up. Anyway, we are where we are with that. As long as I get vacuum and advance on it, which I can check on my phone because I've got an electronic distributor in, we'll live with that for now, and I'll have to probably take everything off again. But I think the main aim is we're nearly there. I've got the heat shield on. Just got to get the exhaust on next, reconnect the battery, and we'll go from there. With fingers crossed, we'll be running before we know it. Okay, well, it's fired up straight away. Sounds sweet as a nut. Racing away a little bit, so I'm not all right. Just let it settle down. Sounds alright. So a bit of the door before I get gassed out. Put the air filter on, balance them up, and then away we go. Okay, so it's the next day, and I've got Andy here. Say hello, Andy.
Good afternoon.
Right, he's been helping me set these blooming Webbers up. I've had a bit of a mare with them. So I watched a YouTube video last night after some advice from Andy saying, watch YouTube, this will sort it out. And basically, I hadn't had them balanced correctly with the throttle, so I had to adjust a little screw and look through two openings in the cab, which was a bit of a difficult one for the back for starters. And then I had to do the mixture screw. I had them wound out probably over halfway, and you meant to screw them in fully and then out 1 1/4 turns, and hey presto, it run. Excuse me, it's the smoke from yesterday. Although it was revving its nuts off, and the linkage was sticking a little bit, so we've mucked around with that for the last hour or so, and we've managed to get the linkage freed off, so it ticks over like a dream now. So we're happy, and Andy's just going to do is a quick start on it because it's ticking over lovely. But one thing I have got is the chokes keep falling out, so I've got to put some trumpets in, but because the trumpets are too long, I've got to trim them down. So what we're doing here on the trumpets, when the camera decides to play ball, you see the trumpets there. These are the long ones, and I'm trimming them down like that so they just hold the chokes in. I don't want to use my original ones because they're short ones, so they may come in handy for somebody. But these longer ones are probably not much use, so I'll trim them back. Anyway, back to the car. So Andy's going to do a bit of a fire up for us. So do us the honours, Andy, please. Come. It always dies a little bit and then just recovers. But after yesterday, that's unbelievable. Just give it a blip, hand. So one thing I have noticed, if I could flick it off, just pull the coil wire off. That's our means of shutting it off, rather than keep climbing in and out the car. So one thing I've got to suss out is the linkage now, because it's not giving it full throttle. So If anyone's got any ideas of how I can extend it so I get full throttle, drop us a comment if you don't mind. This is a kit. I bought a Stein kit, I think it was called. I can't remember. Cytec kit. But it just doesn't seem to give full throttle, so whether I need to buy another one with a longer block, I'll have to have a look on the internet. But if anyone's got any answers on that, please don't hesitate to just drop us a comment, and I'll be much appreciative of it. Okay, so we're finally done. Air filter's now fitted. I've ordered a little breather for here, so a K&N type thing off the internet. I've just got to sort a bracket out for this vacuum, and I've got to sort a bracket out for this, but it'll probably be alright, but I'll put a bracket on it just because I like things having brackets on. So finally it's come up okay, and it's colouring up just lovely in the exhaust there with revving it and ticking over, so one happy man. The downside is now it's snowing, so I can't even go out and trial it, but anyway, that's enough. I spent nearly 10 hours on this blooming thing getting it sorted, but I suppose it's not that long in the whole scope of things. Anyway, thanks for watching, and when we get it up and running and I'm out in it, I'll do a bit of a video of the scutching it around, and let's see if we've got any more torque, and I will do a bit of a video on that. Thanks for watching again. See you soon. Bye.